Khumalo. As a recap from last episode where we played Consume Khumalo versus CTM, we found that Khumalo's actually pretty well positioned right now. If people are playing CTM, you can hammer Mambat Virtual Tours for free. Unfortunately, our money engine in Knob Kieri into Consume was a little lackluster. We found that, it had a very high overhead, and the impact of getting virus counters on Consume was just not enough. So today our objective is to find a different virus program that makes better use of Knob Kieri's virus counters. And to do that, surprisingly, we are actually going to rebound to what we visited in episode 1. Netrunner. Now, with Netrunner, if you remember all the way back, we found that I couldn't make any real conclusions about how good or bad Netrunner is because I didn't get to use it all that much. It kept getting trashed, although I had a very strong feeling it would be too slow against most fast corp decks nowadays. But going even further back to when this data pack was first spoiled, I basically, as a veteran player who has played since the very first core set, which contained the card Parasite, when you put Netrunner next to Parasite, since they are almost identical in function, I concluded that it was basically inferior in just about every way to Parasite, so there was really not much point in playing it. That being said, after posting those Khumalo videos, I've had several valuable comments from you viewers. Kevin Ray mentioned that Netrunner can be hosted on Unrest Ice. This is a small detail that I completely overlooked and is very game changing, right? Especially if you know the identity of certain ice because you have been running R&D or HQ often, you can potentially make very smart guesses on which ice to place Netrunner on and invalidate the ice they are most afraid of. This is a very valuable option because you can also accumulate virus counters even while the ice is unrest. This is very nice. Zianschling also comments on some possible synergies with Netrunner. Specifically, it might be good with Contaminate and Hive Mind. Now, Contaminate I'm not that big of a fan because Contaminate only works on viruses that have no counters on them. So for example, with a Netrunner with 2 virus counters on, you cannot drop a Contaminate to put it all the way to 5 and trash the host ice. This is a very huge limitation. Being able to threaten an instant trash at any moment, as long as you have 2 or more virus counters on Netrunner. This is the main reason I'm not a fan of Contaminate. Hive Mind, on the other hand, is a completely different story. Hive Mind is the perfect synergy card with Netrunner, and this combo was what actually inspired this deck to begin with. We are going to build a deck where Netrunner is the main breaker, and we are using Hive Mind as a key player in enabling Netrunner. First, let's talk about synergies with Clone Chip. That is going to be our restricted card in this deck. If you are using Netrunner as a main breaker, it's a no-brainer. With 3 Clone Chips, you get 6 users out of Netrunner. You can kill any 6 ice you wish. That is a very strong effect. If you have been through the Parasifer days of yore, you would know how powerful this is. Especially if you have a Hive Mind to make the instant trash on the Netrunner happen. So Hive Mind's 2 main benefits are that firstly, Netrunner doesn't actually consume the Hive Mind counters. It benefits from Hive Mind, but doesn't take counters away from Hive Mind. This is a very important detail compared to other viruses that consume virus tokens as a cost. Something like an Imp, something like a Cache, Consume. These virus cards take away virus tokens from Hive Mind if you choose to use the tokens from Hive Mind. Whereas Netrunner doesn't. Netrunner doesn't consume counters, it simply needs 5 counters on it or shared between Netrunner and Hive Mind in order for its ability to activate to trash the host ice. So this is what makes Netrunner very good because it means that even after your first Netrunner has made good use of your loaded Hive Mind, you can play a second Netrunner which will equally benefit as much from the Hive Mind. And of course, as I mentioned, once you reach 5 Hive Mind counters, Netrunner becomes incredibly scary because you can play it anytime, even at instant speed, to instantly trash any ice you're encountering. That is a big deal because, again, it brings back those days of Parasifer where you can run freely knowing that with a Clone Chip installed and a Hive Mind at 5 virus counters, you can get through anything in the game. Anything except for Titanium and Architect. And maybe, yeah, that's about it. Alright, so to make Hive Mind work, we need extra support for it. After all, Hive Mind doesn't gain virus counters by itself. So we need some support cards, and that's where Nob Kiri comes in. Not only does it show up the downside of Hive Mind being 2 MU by providing an ample 3 MU, it also recharges Hive Mind after a virus purge. This is extremely important because most corps will start purging your Hive Mind once you get 3 or more counters on it. Nob Kiri says, well, even if you reset all the virus counters, all I have to do is make a successful run to place 1 virus counter on Hive Mind. And then you bring in the other combo card, Virus Breeding Ground. Once you have that single virus counter on Hive Mind placed by Nob Kiri, you can start charging up your Hive Mind with Virus Breeding Ground. It's not very efficient. A click for a virus counter is not a good trade. I mean, if you do the maths, if you from 1 virus counter to go all the way up to 5 virus counters on the triple no to trash and ice, that's 4 clicks of Virus Breeding Ground you need. 4 clicks plus the click needed to install virus triple no, that's 5 clicks to trash and 2 credits to install the triple no just to trash a target ice. How many ice in the game are you willing to spend 5 clicks to trash? Not that much. It's not so much to, you know, trash ice as soon as you drop the triple no. It's more of the threat. You know, you have virus counters sitting on Virus Breeding Ground. The corp has to think twice about jamming agendas behind Enderun Ice when you can simply drop virus counters at will from Virus Breeding Ground onto the triple no on your remote ice. So the threat is what's important here. Virus Breeding Ground allows you to threaten a much faster triple no trigger than the usual 5 turns that you normally need in order to get from triple no from 0 to 5. So this is our deck list here. Most of it is pretty self-explanatory. You'll see that I have some backup breakers in the event that the corp is aggressive with purging virus counters, and we even have a Satier here in order to make up for the fact that if the corp purges virus counters, at least we're getting some money out of it so that we can use our regular icebreakers to start making runs and farming up those virus counters again. Now today's game will feature, or should I say today's game is not going to be that high quality in terms of gameplay, right? I think both me and my opponent did not play very well this game, and I would normally not feature such a video. However, it's not often that I get to actually showcase every single moving piece of the deck in a single video. So this is why I still ultimately decided to go with this playthrough, because I actually managed, spoiler alert, I actually managed to use a lot of the combo pieces that I just mentioned in the preceding slides. So we'll get to the game and we'll see how these combo pieces work together. With any other Anarch deck I'd play, this hand is a straight up mull, right? Not enough economy. Dirty Laundry is the smallest economy card. Earthrise is a very expensive card to drop, and the other 3 cards are pretty useless on their own. No triple no to go with the Hive Mind or the Virus Breeding Ground, and what use is a Turning Wheel when you don't have the money to install breakers, let alone the breakers themselves. However, the reason I keep this hand will become apparent in a moment or two. First off, we are up against Nearth Hub. We can expect them to install lots of assets to trigger their ability, and because Nearth Hub draws you into more cards, you get more assets to spam, you draw into more ice and more agendas, which means that I should be expecting to play against a very fast deck, and the turn 1 play confirms it. 3 assets into advanced assembly lines. I think my opponent played this suboptimally. If they use the advanced assembly lines to create a new remote, using the card from server 2 or server 3 instead, they could have potentially gotten an extra Nearth Hub draw. But that aside, we are going to Dirty Laundry into team sponsorship, which costs 1 to res, so no Khumalo triggers here. It's going to stay where it is. Now I'm very worried about my opponent scoring behind server 3's ice, and then triggering team sponsorship to install the advanced lines from the bin again. So this is where I attempt to check server 3's content, only to get stopped by a tour guide. Now, I could easily run the team sponsorship, trash the team sponsorship with real money, leave myself on 4 credits and run through the tour guide, which has no subroutines after all the assets are trashed. But I decided that setup was more important, so I forwent server 3 and instead chose to set up my resources, also risking the hard-hitting news. My opponent could easily drop 4 tags on me here, which would spell impending doom, but I'm just hoping that they are not on it, given that they are running team sponsorship. they are less likely to run cards like Boom, so because of influence reasons. So I'm safe from hard hitting news for now, sorry, but they show up HQ, which was a server I was going to run soon, and they install a new remote. So what do? We play Street Peddler. The Street Peddler wasn't very nice. I think it had 2 short gambles on it, but we're going to run HQ here and force the ice res. There are probably agendas in HQ by this point, and I would like to actually force my opponent to res their HQ ice, which they do. It's a tour guide, that's fine. We're gonna run Rashida Jahim, the 0 res cost, 1 trash cost asset that is a must trash. So I use my real credits to trash the Rashida Jahim because I wanted to save my Khumalo trigger for team sponsorship. Right? Now I have 1 virus counter on the virus breeding ground, which I use to promptly trash the team sponsorship. My opponent went ahead with 3 more assets. You see why it's so important to contest the early Rashida Jahim. My opponent made a big mistake of not putting the Rashida behind the tour guide, which ends the run, and because of that, they missed out on 3 extra cards, 3 extra credits, and I'm going to start trashing the rest of their board as well. First, I hit a Mamba Temple, which I trash with Khumalo, and the 1 virus counter on the breeding ground that I got at the start of my turn. Then I keep my opponent honest by checking the other 2 remotes, because they could be agendas that my opponent is attempting to, throw on the table. I'm not going to let my opponent get any free agendas here, so I'm going to check all of them, and that's what I saw. The Mamba Temple into DBS. My opponent got a free res on the DBS because of Mamba Temple. Not much I can do about that right now, but with yet another virus counter incoming from the breeding ground, I can now trash Mamba Temple for free. Are you keeping count of the number of credits I'm saving using Khumalo's ability now? No? I'm gonna do it for you. 10 credits, 4 from team sponsorship, 2 times 3 from the 2 Mamba Temples I've trashed. And I'm fine. I'm still fine. I still have enough credits and clicks to install a daily cast. And this is why I kept my opening hand. The 1 key card I saw in my opening hand was the Virus Breeding Grounds, and it proved right. I knew nothing about my opponent's deck, but I'm not regretting the decision at all, because having the constant stream of virus counters from Virus Breeding Ground is allowing me to contest these 1 risk cost assets when I usually can't. Now here's the problem. We've moved on to the 2 rest cost asset stage of the game. My opponent has a Jeeves behind an ice and a DBS, both of which cost 2 to trash. That's a problem now, right? That's a problem because I only have 1 virus breeding ground, so it's gonna take double the amount of time to trash these assets. However, just because we're Khumalo doesn't mean we can't use real credits to trash assets. DBS is a high priority target, so I'm definitely trashing it with real credits even though it breaks my back. I do have the cast ticking down, so daily cast will still supply me with a constant stream of credits, not the end of the world. You'll notice my opponent scores a build behind the tour guide. It took them long enough to do it. I think they should have done it earlier when they had the team sponsorship up, but now that they don't have the team sponsorship, I'm not that upset about them scoring the build here. Now I'm going to contest the Jeeves model Bioroids with a loaded virus breeding ground, and my opponent cannot afford to rest the ice because they just chose to score the build. So this is a big mistake on my opponent's end. Leaving them with a huge vulnerability window for me to go after the Jeeves model Bioroids. It's a very key card that increases their click efficiency. I would have definitely protected it better if I were my opponent. Hold off the build for a while. But in any case, the game continues as my opponent successfully defends their Rashida Jahim. Now this is a good play from my opponent. This is how you need to play your Rashida. You want to protect it with an end run so that now you get the trigger. You are now on 3 credits. You don't have to click for credits this turn. Instead, you can spend your entire turn install. That's great. Too bad they couldn't defend the Jeeves because that would have been 1 more install for them. So here they just install, take a credit, and now it's my turn. So I have a Liberator account in my hand, and I really want to play it and take money, but there is no seizing. We need to continue placing pressure to make sure my opponent doesn't get away scot-free with all these assets. I threaten HQ here, knowing that they just drew out with Rashida, probably have a lot of agendas in hand, force them to rest the team sponsorship to add subroutines to tour guide. So that way I can discover which of these assets are actually assets and which are not. I see a Mamba Temple in the second server, which my opponent doesn't defend, so I'm going to trash it easily with Khumalo's ability with Virus Breeding Grounds again. Right, and then we drop the Liberator accounts. Now we have actual real money to install Icebreakers with, to trash cards with. Awesome. Right, what do we do here? You'll notice that I have the turning wheel in hand, but I've never had the opportunity to install it. Well, now it's time to go ham. As my opponent's asset spam trickles to a halt, I can now focus my efforts more on centrals and start racking up those vital turning wheel counters. The early game was all about suppressing my opponent's assets, but now that they're slowing down, now that they're drawing to nothing but agendas, I'm going to siege R&D. Unfortunately, I haven't drawn into a single Tripano yet, which means that HQ and the team spawn server are out of reach. I can't break the endurance, and I do not have MK Ultra either to break those ice. Otherwise, I will be going straight into HQ and fetching all those juicy agendas. You'll notice my opponent has drawn through half the deck, but we've only seen 2 agendas. There's a lot of agendas hiding in my opponent's hand, and I would love to get a shot at them, preferably with a loaded turning wheel. That's what I'm aiming for right here, and my opponent knows the ticking time bomb is on their head. So I think I'm doing well so far. Unfortunately, the agenda I just stole is worth nothing because my opponent can easily reshuffle it, but now they play something in server 3 and it's time for me to contest it. We see an endless Euler here, and of course I'm forced to jack out here. I mean, I could pay into the Euler, but that means that I'll be broke. I can recharge with a Liberator accounts, but given that there's no other money cards in my hand, probably not the best idea to pay into an endless Euler when I'm running a Tripano deck. I would much rather kill the Euler with Hive Mind and Tripano, right? So that's what I'm going to aim for. Hopefully the Earthrise will draw into the Tripano sooner or later. For now, I'm just going to continue placing central pressure, scoring myself an SSL endorsement. So this is a very interesting agenda to steal. They are running real actual 3-pointers. And what better time for me to steal it than now? They were super poor, but now with the 9 credits of SSL, they're going to be able to do a lot of things that they previously couldn't. Install new ice, advanced agendas. This opens a whole new window for them to rush out and close out the game as they score yet another agenda here. This time, a scary license acquisition. They are about to acquire something from the bin. No, wait, 2 things from the bin because of team sponsorship. They get a free advanced assembly lines, which jumpstarts the economy and allows them to install yet another thing, and then they install an ice onto R&D to prevent me from farming turning wheel counters. Oh dear, that is a problem now, isn't it? Right, so at least the good news here is that my opponent isn't threatening to score an agenda next turn. They did not install any new agendas behind the Euler. However, I have drawn into my Tripano. I think it's time to start setting up my Tripano, my Hive Mind, and my Nob Kieri. Hehe, Nob Kieri. It's in my hand now. Too poor to install it though. Again, something that I, repeatedly hammered into your heads the last episode. I think some people still did not get it. I'll say it again. Nob Kieri is... boy, it's expensive. It's bloody expensive. 5 install costs. You barely have the time to install it. Even when you're not against CTM, NEH runs faster than CTM. I just don't have the time to pay 5 credits for a console that does nothing for me right now. I need the 5 credits to install Hive Mind to install Tripano. There's just no time to get the Nob Kieri down. I have 1 on my Street Peddler, but that's going to cost me 4 credits and I only have 2 right now. It's just not going to work out. This is why Nob Kieri is just going to be stuck in your hand most of the time and will usually never see play in your opening turns. You just cannot afford to play a 5-cost console that signals to your opponent, hey, you can score agendas freely because the breakers are not payable. You can't afford breakers after installing a 5-cost console. So Nob Kieri is only something that you can really get into play mid to late game for the most part, right? And this is exactly what's happening here. Nob Kieri would be amazing against Tripano, to power Tripano, to power Khumalo, but we just don't have the need for the extra MU and we don't have the resources to install it. We are too busy spending our clicks running and setting up our virus breeding grounds, our Tripano, our Hive Mind. Those virus breeding grounds and the viruses on the table right now cost 4 clicks to install and a lot of credits. A lot of credits. I had barely enough time to click for credits or draw through my deck because I was too busy contesting my opponent's board. So now it seems like they're going to rush an agenda behind the Euler, but I can easily get through, right? There is a way to get things done here, and this is why I needed to get a Hive Mind and Tripano down ASAP. With the clone chip in my hand, with the virus breeding grounds, I can potentially make a dash for the server. The problem is, I don't know what the mystery upgrade on server 6 is. It could be something like a red herrings on Ash that would stop me from stealing the agenda even if I manage to trash both ice on the server with Tripano and clone chip into Tripano. So I decided that that was not a very good idea. Instead, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to continue charging up my hive mind, right? So if it really is an agenda, say a second project build, well, they have to worry about me having a loaded hive mind next turn. I'm going to load my hive mind all the way to 5, which threatens an insta-trash, and then I'm going to liberate the Tripano on my peddler to insta-trash the tour guide that was protecting the team sponsorship. So this is my second line of defense. I'm telling my opponent, hey, you know what, if you have a 3 advanceable agenda in that server, you can score it. But you're not going to get a team spawn trigger, and if you score it this turn, I'm going to have a loaded hive mind to threaten your other ice with. You better be careful. Are you sure you want to score your agenda? I guess you do. It's a calibration testing in the remote. I could have gone for it if I wanted to. I was just overestimating the remote, thought it was a defensive upgrade that I couldn't pay for. I was wrong. Well, my opponent gets to score this agenda here. Now at this point, shenanigans happens. I'm not very sure what my opponent chose to do here. I was rather confused, but in any case, they scored the build with the calibration testing, even though they could have preserved the Cali testing on the remote for a later agenda, you know, to threaten the fast advance with the final project build. I don't really know what they did, what they wanted to do here or what they did, but you know, they just reset their credits fine, and I couldn't be bothered to check. So we left it as it was. Yeah, spoiler alert, this wasn't a very good game. At this point, I was thinking I'm probably not going to showcase this game on my channel, but here we are. Anyway, all that said, I'm going to continue running HQ here. My opponent made a big mistake of leaving themselves with no res assets, so tour guide does nothing. I'm going to run through tour guide a whole bunch, right? So this was a big reason why I wanted to attack the team sponsorship. Not only was I able to deny them a team sponsorship trigger, but it also kills the only asset remaining on the board, allowing me to run through HQ as well, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. And speaking of 2 birds, I have 2 little birds in my score area. Thank you for the second SSL endorsement. Very valuable agenda, putting me up on 6 points immediately. Any agenda remaining, including the 15 minutes that's also elusive, will win me the game. Quick agenda point count, 6 in my score area, 5 in my opponent's. There are 9 agenda points remaining in the game. Problem is, my opponent is also on match point. They can threaten a build to win the game anytime. That card in that server could be a build. I'd better run it. Let's see what it is. It's a G-Smother Bioroids. I have Virus Breeding Grounds all stocked up, 2 of them ready to go. Easy trash on the G-Smother Bioroids. End my turn after, what did I do? I took a bunch of credits and installed a clone chip. So this clone chip and Asacia, I got it down just at the right time as my opponent purged my hive mind, and my Asacia gave me a net 4 credits. So the reason I installed the Asacia there was to protect from purge, because I was highly suspecting that my opponent would do a purge once they saw my clone chip. A 5 charge hive mind is pretty bad, but what's worse than that is knowing that the runner can get Tripano at instant speed with a clone chip. So my opponent had to purge there. It lost them a lot of tempo, but it also reset my hive mind. So I was pretty desperate to get the Knob Kiri down right here, get my hive mind to 1 virus counter so that I can start threatening a 5 counter hive mind once again. It's pretty slow though. Even with 2 virus breeding grounds, I can't threaten the super hive mind this coming turn, which is a problem because my opponent is about to start jamming another item behind that ice, and now I cannot run through that server, definitely not through 2 pieces of ice. So this is where Tripano as a main breaker is starting to show its weakness. You can challenge a single ice server, but you definitely can't challenge this double ice server. I'm certainly not going to trash any ice this turn. I don't have enough virus counters out there. But with nary a breaker in my bin, most of my breakers are still in my stack, I can't contest this server. Thankfully, my opponent actually throws me a bone here and reveals a non-agenda in server 6. It is an advanced assembly lines that I can easily ignore, so that saves me 1 turn. The reason they pre-rest it was actually to add the subroutine to tour guide, so I can't just run HQ here. That's fine though. This means that I'm buying myself one more turn to charge up that valuable Hive Mind. So now I need to think about my line of attack. I can easily try to go for centrals for the win, and this is what I'm going to attempt to do. I'm going to spend 2 clicks gathering turning wheel counters. With my remaining 2 clicks, I'm going to charge up my Hive Mind with the existing virus counters on the virus breeding grounds, putting me at 3 Hive Mind counters. This way, if my opponent decides to rush behind ice, I can at the very least threaten instant triple no on something on the remote, and hopefully be able to break the other one some way or another. So that's what I'm planning to do here, as my opponent fires off their advanced assembly lines, and I notice at this point they could very well have the game in hand. They could fire advanced lines on a calibration testing and install double advanced project build to win the game. I did not see that line of play. Had I seen it, I would have thought about running the remote. Well, be that as it may, my opponent doesn't actually win here. More shenanigans happen. They misclick a bunch and install stuff in the wrong place. So takebacks are gonna happen, and they're gonna install things the right way. So a bunch of installs happening. Turns out they're gonna install one item without ice and one item behind the 2 ice remote. That iced item could very well be the project build. So at this point, I have to ask myself, am I getting into server 6? I pretty quickly concluded the answer is no. If they're confident enough to jam a build behind 2 pieces of ice, they better be good and run ice like tour guides, enigmas, vanillas that I can't break. Or they'll be very taxing ice like endless oiler that I will attempt to break once and then have no money to break a second time, at which point they can safely jam their real build behind. So the bottom line is there's no point playing the remote shell game with them. With a turning wheel with 4 wheel counters on it, there's no reason not to go for centrals, especially seeing that there's still quite a few agenda points left unaccounted for, including the 15 minutes that was shuffled back into the deck. So that was my plan. I'm going to go for R&D, but there's an ice on R&D. What better way to get past the ice than to use my final breaker in the triple no. We've used 2 triple no's from our deck, but not a single clone chip. This clone chip on the table can get me past the single ice R&D. So we are gonna utilize it, but that means first getting 5 Hive Mind counters, which I'll quickly do. Again, shenanigans happen. I accidentally misclick. I thought triple no looked like Hive Mind, but it did not. So we take the clone chip back. We're gonna reinstall the triple no, this time correctly. A bug on JNet actually reveals that the ice on R&D is an endless oiler. That is quite a big bug. I'm not supposed to know what ice it is on R&D. It's unrest after all. So yeah, taking advantage of the YouTube commenter's suggestion that you can actually host triple no on unrest ice. This is actually a big help here. I mean, it doesn't really make a difference. Even if you can't host it on unrest ice, I would simply pre-charge the Hive Mind to 5 counters and then run R&D, installing clone chip on my way in. Now, on my first run, I access an endless oiler that is a 6 to trash. 6 to trash with Khumalo, and I pay the 5 virus counters to exhaust my Hive Mind. This sounds like a really stupid idea. I did this not because I was afraid of a future endless oiler on R&D, but because I wanted to dig deep into R&D. By trashing the top card, I can then make a subsequent run with turning wheel to see more cards, and indeed I find the winning agendas off the top of R&D. Interesting game, huh? For all the flack I give Tripano, given that I, met it with initial disdain, playing Tripano felt pretty good this game, especially against an Ice Light Nerf hub deck. Every time my opponent shot up a server, I simply swung over to a different server, attacked it, deleted it with Tripano, and made my opponent scramble for more ice. It felt really good being able to threaten destroying ice at any time with a Hive Mind 5 out there. That's amazing. And the interaction with Peddler is definitely not lost on me. I had a triple no on Peddler once, and that allowed me to spring a surprise on my opponent, destroying their remote ice, their remote tour guide at a time that they least expected it. I think triple no is a superb solution to the 0 strength multi-subroutine ice that are plaguing the meta. Well, that's a bit of a stretch to say it's plaguing, but my opponent was attempting to use that to tax me out. those multi-sub ice would have been really expensive had I been using the standard paperclip and MK Ultra. Oh jeez, can you imagine breaking Tour Guide with MK Ultra? Yeah, Tripano is really good in those scenarios, and for that reason alone, I think Tripano will always have a bit of a niche, especially as more and more of such multi-sub ice are being printed. It allows you to attack ice with a different from a different using a different vector. You know, most icebreakers are limited by the requiring at least 1 credit to break one subroutine. There are very few icebreakers out there that can break lots of subroutine at once. Well, Tripano circumvents that completely. Who needs icebreakers? That's awesome. Now that being said, this was an ideal matchup for me because my opponent was running Ice Light and was depending on those multi-sub ice to keep me out. Against a more prepared opponent that runs a Glacier deck, perhaps more ice, and a deck that can reliably draw into more ice, then I can throw out Tripanos. Tripano as a main breaker simply doesn't cut it. You'll notice that towards the end there, I was forced into a fork in the road. I either had to choose to contest the remote, which I couldn't, I just did not have enough Tripanos to make it through the remote, or go for R&D, which I luckily won on. So, against a deck with any more ice that's able to double ice centrals and the remote, Tripano really just doesn't shine that much. And given my economy, the state of my economy this game, I don't think I could sustain using regular breakers either. In theory, Acacia is supposed to show up this weakness. If the corp purges your Hive Mind 5, well, you should be able to get lots of money off Acacia to use the regular breakers. However, I found that there just weren't that many virus counters available because I was too busy using them on Khumalo's ability. So, oddly enough, an anti-synergy there. Khumalo is very virus token hungry, and if you are playing some other virus consumer, something like a Yusuf, that's a very good example. There are going to be very few virus counters on the table for Acacia to come into play. So I think Acacia is actually really underwhelming. I mean, it did pay off the same as a Sure Gamble this game, but I really expected more from this card. And yeah, I think it was a bit underwhelming. Perhaps it is better in a different deck, one that runs more viruses, but then we get into this feedback loop. We have this recurring problem where if you play more viruses, these viruses are not going to help you break ice, and again, Tripano as a main breaker doesn't cut it. The more deck slots you spend on cards that are not draw cards, economy cards or breakers, the more diluted your deck becomes, the harder it is to contest your opponent's Rashidas and early agendas. And that really is the base problem of running a virus heavy Khumalo deck. Speaking of virus heavy, I felt that even though the instant speed Tripano trashing Corp Ice felt really good, you can't ignore the fact that assembling the entire Hive Mind combo was slow as heck. This game in particular, the Hive Mind VBG Tripano combo only came online on turn 10. Sure, I spent half my time early on pressuring my opponent, making lots of runs and trashing the assets, so this is not very representative. However, you must note that if you're playing against any corp worth the salt, they will be forcing you to make early runs. You know, if they are not NEH, getting Rashida fires and scoring agenda points, they are probably HB decks scoring elective upgrades, Jinteki decks scoring Nisei Mark 2s. These are things that you can't really afford to concede to the corp. So Tripano really by itself doesn't threaten the corp like some other cards do, especially Parasite, the card I keep comparing it to. Parasite by itself has some utility, especially against low strength ice, against something like Komainu from Jinteki. Maybe especially in this game, you saw Tour Guide, Endless Euler, both 0 strength ice, easily dealt with by Parasite. If you need a 2-card, even 3-card combo in this case to achieve the same level as what Parasite can do with a single card, it's just too much. It's just too much setup, and it's just not fast enough against the fastest of corp decks. That's it. But one thing that really impressed me wasn't Tripano itself, but Khumalo once again pulling through. I thought Khumalo did amazingly against CTM, where it trashed Mambat Virtual Tours for free. Guess what? This game, Khumalo went full wizard mode. Do you want to hazard a guess? How many credits did I save from trashing assets and upgrades this game? Yeah, so what's the total trash cost of all the assets and upgrades I trashed with Khumalo this game? Have you hazarded a guess? Well, guess what? It's 37 freaking credits. This Khumalo is something altogether. You thought Wizard was good. Well, Khumalo is mind-blowingly awesome. And the card that makes it sing the most is Virus Breeding Ground. This combo really impresses me. I think Virus Breeding Ground works its best when you are not using its click ability. All you need is for it to rack up passive virus counters, and you start using it with either Yusuf or in this case Khumalo. Khumalo was able to take advantage of my opponent's running a lot of 1 res cost assets. The Mamba Temples, Red Herrings, team sponsorships were all easy trashes. For the up the ladder, there were Jeeves Model Bioroids and daily business shows that cost 2 to trash, 2 virus counters rather, but it's still a huge discount over the 4 or 5 regular trash costs. Khumalo is an amazing card in the current meta, where the popular assets are low res cost, high in trash cost. It really deals with it very well, and it provides an interesting decision making during the game, because unlike Wizard, where using Wizard's recurring credits every turn is almost a no-brainer whenever you access trashable cards, with Khumalo you have to ask yourself, do I really want to use these virus counters now, or save them up for a rainy day? In any case, Khumalo definitely impressed me this game. Virus Breeding Ground in Khumalo is amazing, and is what single-handedly won me this game. The turn 1 VBG allowed me to control my opponent's assets, buying me enough time to set up the entire Tripano combo, allowing me to show off the power of Clone Chip Tripano, Peddler Chip Tripano, Hive Mind 5, and Asacia. I hope you enjoyed this game as much as I did. Even though it wasn't the best, at least I got to show off all these wonderful interactions. Stay tuned for more Khumalo next time, perhaps. Thanks for watching, happy net running, see ya.